Welcome everybody. This is one in a series of our continuing Facebook Live Q&A events with Cincinnati City Council and mayoral candidates. With us this evening is Cincinnati Council candidate Laure Quinlivan.
Hi everybody.
We also have our guest Dawn. She is providing ASL interpretation for us this evening, and she is from Cincinnati State's ASL program. I'm Nicole. I'm from Together We Will, Cincinnati in Southwest Ohio. We're going to have just a little bit of filler right now while we wait for everybody who is joining us to paste the link onto their page. We have some groups joining us today from all over Cincinnati. We've got United We Stand, Together We Will, Cincinnati East, and Indivisible for All are also joining us, as well as a few other groups. So welcome to everybody. While we're waiting, I'm just going to introduce the procedure for commenting with your questions. We really want you to join in with any questions you have for the candidate. In order to do that, click the link to the video on your screen or click on the feed itself, and you should be able to comment with your question. If you comment below the post itself, we won't be able to see your question, so make sure you comment in the right spot. And keep in mind, Facebook is a little quixotic. Sometimes it drops questions out of our comment feed. So if we haven't asked your question after you've asked it, that could have happened. Feel free to repeat your question. We promise we are not ignoring you. How are we doing on people joining in? Good?
I think so.
Excellent. Welcome again, everybody. I'm just going to run through the comment procedure very briefly again. Make sure you comment on the feed itself and not below the post so that we can see your question. And please ask your question anytime you feel like you want to ask it. We really want to hear from you. Once again, this is Together We Will, Cincinnati, Southwest Ohio, and we are here with Cincinnati Council candidate Laure Quinlivan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, glad to be here in my yoga room. Welcome to my yoga room.
I can't believe you have a yoga room. If Laure looks familiar to you, it is because she led Channel 9's I-Team for about 13 years. She won national honors for public service reporting, including 18 Emmys and 2 Peabodys. Did I get all of them?
Yeah, you got it.
And no, I am not intimidated at all.
You're glad I don't have a microphone right now, right?
I am. She exposed fraud and mismanagement in the stadium building program. And her 2001 documentary, Visions of Vine Street, helped revitalize Over the Rhine. Laure may also look familiar because she has served on the Cincinnati City Council before, starting in 2009. During her term, she developed community entertainment districts. I had to look because I wanted to make sure I got that right. Those are areas of the city with special arrangements for liquor licenses. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. She also led the change in city council term limits from 4 2-year terms to 2 4-year terms, and she has been a champion of the Cincinnati streetcar. Laure founded her video storytelling company, which is called LQ Consulting, in 2008.
Just happen to have a brochure.
And for fun, she teaches tri-yoga at LA Fitness.
Yeah.
I am not jealous.
You can always come to the class.
Nope, I don't think I could. But others could.
Try yoga. It's good for any fitness level, seriously.
Really?
It really is, yeah. You know, some yoga classes are so fast, and, you know, I don't know why people don't get injured when they're in those classes, but Try Yoga is the flowing form of yoga, so it really is appropriate for any fitness level.
Really cool. If you want to learn more about Laure's campaign, you can find her website at qforcouncil.com, and of course she is on Facebook and Twitter. And if you're looking for a quick way to follow all the candidates on Twitter at once, please subscribe to our Twitter list. You'll find it at TWWSWOH. At this point, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let Laure introduce herself.
Well, you did a great introduction. Thank you so much. And hi, everybody. My name is Laure Quinlivan. As Nicole's already kind of told my whole background, which is great, but I did serve on City Council from 2009 to 2013, and I also have my own company. So I've been away from council for the last 3 or 4 years, almost 4 years, and some people have asked, why do you want to run again? And the answer is, I really do enjoy public service. So being an I-team reporter all those years, that was public service to me, where we were looking out for taxpayers and trying to solve, important community issues with our reporting. But what I found when I was elected to City Council is you can take all of that work to the next level and actually change the law if it needs to be changed or develop a new policy. So I think the platform of City Council is a wonderful way to really accomplish public service. So I like that. I'm married to a Cincinnati Public School art teacher who is also taking sign language at Cincinnati State right now for his continuing education. So I think he's watching her do this. And my son Quinn, who's over in the corner, he is 10 years old at Kilgore. So we are a Cincinnati Public School family. And I'm just excited to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
I'm going to launch right into our questions.
I'm ready.
If anybody is wondering where these questions come from, they come from a large group of people, and together we're all asked to submit sample questions that they would ask candidates, and we distilled them down to these. So I'm going to launch right in.
Okay.
We have a general question to get started, and that is, what are your exact responsibilities to the city and your constituents?
You mean when I'm serving?
Yes.
When you're serving? Well, here in Cincinnati, we don't represent districts or wards or anything like that. So we represent all the citizens. And, that means you're available to anybody who calls you, emails you, or comes to your office. And when I served on City Council, we had a very great staff, because you're only as good as your staff. And so our door was always open. You'll find sometimes when you go up to City Hall, the doors are closed or people aren't in, but we kept an open office. And one of the joys of public service is that you can actually help people solve their problems. Mm-hmm. So, excuse me, as I said, email, calls, or just coming in to talk to us. And what I found out is that citizens really do have the best ideas for things. So some of the best accomplishments of mine on City Council, like the community entertainment districts, like Wasson Way Bike Path, like mobile food vending, all of those originated with citizen idea or citizen issue that they wanted help solving. So, working with citizens is really what we do on council.
Great. Related to that, how do you plan to address the needs of all your constituents and not just those of your party? And along those lines, how would you help heal the current political divide?
Well, that's a good question, because I think anybody who's watched this last council, these last 4 years, the city hall as a whole, there's been a big division between the mayor and certain people and all of that. So my philosophy is city council is a nonpartisan race. When people go to the polls, they will not see an R, a D, or a C after our names. It really is nonpartisan. We do represent everyone. And if somebody calls my office, we don't say, are you a Democrat? Or do you live in my neighborhood? I mean, those are just questions you don't ask. We serve everyone. So I think that it's good to approach it that way and not even think about it as a partisan thing. You're just helping citizens. Yeah.
Okay. One thing a lot of our members want to know about anybody who is representing them right now in politics is how can you guarantee that you will be held accountable to your constituents? How can we actually hold you accountable?
Well, the way you hold us accountable is with your vote. I mean, that is how you hold us accountable. And also, the way the world is right now, look what you're doing. You're doing a Facebook live stream of candidates. I mean, everybody's a reporter these days, which is good for holding your public officials accountable. So there's, op-eds that people do. There's social media. I mean, word gets out if you're not doing your job. And then, of course, my friends in the regular media of Cincinnati, too. I've noticed as a former I-team reporter that suddenly investigative reporting is back. I don't know if you've noticed as citizens, but when I left television in 2007, I-teams like I was on were really going under because they didn't want to fund them anymore. And, it does take a lot of time for good investigative reporting, but all of them are back now. So Channel 9 has one, Channel 12 has one, Channel 5 has one, and I know that there's some good investigative reporters at City Beat and at the Enquirer. So I like that too, and I'm glad that we have those watchdogs in the media as well on the local level, and certainly God knows we need it at the national level more than ever. And so that makes me feel like all of the community, the media, and just regular citizens do hold us accountable.
Good. You mentioned several ways that people can get in touch with you. What is the best way for us to communicate with you as your constituents?
You mean when I'm elected?
Yes.
I say the best way is simply to call the council office, because we answer the phone, and also you can email, but in my mind, emails get lost a little more quickly than phone calls do. So I would do both, email and phone call, or come in and arrange an appointment to sit down and have a face-to-face meeting. We did lots of those with our constituents. So,
great.
Yeah.
All right. How will you work within the council and within the local government as a whole to move the city forward?
Well, my vision for the city is the same as it was when I ran the first time in 2009, and that's cleaner, greener, smarter. And so everything that I decide I'm going to really put my effort and energy behind, I want it to make our city cleaner, greener, and smarter. The smartest thing we can do is create jobs and help our neighborhoods succeed. And so, I have that passion to do those things that make our city cleaner, greener, smarter, and that moves us forward. So I'm proud to say that when I was on council before, I was with a very progressive team. We had a majority on council then, and we were led by a very progressive mayor, and we invested in things that you can see paying off today. So the streetcar, number one, Washington Park. A lot of people thought that was a silly waste of money, but we believed that it was an important transformational project for the city, and I think we can all see today that it is. And also the banks development. A lot of people thought that was silly. We shouldn't be spending money, but anybody who goes to Smale Riverfront Park now or goes to a game can see it's really helped move our city forward. So I think those key investments are really important to keep the city moving forward. At the same time, we've learned some lessons. So in redoing Over the Rhine, for example, a lot of people are now priced out of Over the Rhine. Whether you're a student or an elderly person, it costs a lot of money to live in Over the Rhine. So we have to be intentional about creating and preserving affordable housing as we continue to fix up these neighborhoods. So Over the Rhine we've done, and it's certainly not finished yet, but we're well on our way. But there's a lot of other up-and-coming neighborhoods like Walnut Hills and Madisonville and Price Hill, and I just think it's going to be important for me on council this time to make sure that we preserve affordable housing too.
Great. There are a lot of issues facing Cincinnati right now. One of them is our sanctuary city status. So how do you feel about Cincinnati's sanctuary status? Would you lobby to keep it?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is we already were a sanctuary city because we weren't actively trying to help deport or detain any immigrants. So I think it's good that we are. It's unfortunate that could possibly now be used against us by President Trump. I don't know if that will really happen because I know there's a lot of sanctuary cities, but it's also important to think about how did we get to be a sanctuary city. You need to have Democrats on your city council that vote for those things, that feel that it's important. And I know that a lot of people are energized by what's happened nationally, and we've all been to the marches and all of this, but it really starts at this local level. We need to elect progressive people at the local level so they can then move up and go for statewide office and run for Congress. But this is where you can really make an immediate difference is locally.
Okay. One of the other issues facing Cincinnati right now is racial healing. What is your plan for taking on racial healing, and how does it differ from what has been done in the past?
Well, I think our city has actually a good history on this in some ways. You probably all know that back in 2001 we had our riot, our civil unrest, and in many ways we were ahead of other cities who have gone through that in the last few years. And it was sparked by a shooting of an unarmed black man by police, and that forced our city to make so many changes. We were under a federal consent decree to change the Cincinnati Police Department, and there was a lot of resistance at that time, and I remember because I was a reporter, but those changes were made, and our city has moved into a position of being a model in some ways for many other cities. So our officers, for example, do have training in how to de-escalate situations and not automatically escalate them. They are much more involved in community policing. They have much better relationships with people in the community than they ever have before. And I think one thing that proves that is what happened with the shooting that we had a couple of years ago with Sam DuBose. Mm-hmm. Right? Everybody knows that that was a wrongful shooting. It wasn't by Cincinnati police, though. It was by UC police. And the thing that didn't happen in our city, which could have so easily, is a riot. And I think that is because the relationships now between police and citizens are so much better than they were 20 years ago when, of course, we would have had a riot. So that was at the same time frame when cities across the country were actually blowing up with incidents, and ours didn't. Now, of course, the Ray Tensing trial's coming up again, mm-hmm. and I know there's going to be a lot of interest in that, and we'll all be watching that too. But in general, I think our police have come a long way, but we still have to be monitoring and be mindful of relationships with the community are what matter the most in that being successful.
Great. Thank you.
All right. She's going to fix our sign. Okay. Yay. We need to keep it looking good.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks.
We do have a question from the audience.
Okay.
Okay. The question is, how will you use the lessons learned in Over the Rhine to revitalize other Cincinnati neighborhoods while ensuring that the low and middle income families are not displaced?
Okay, so that is exactly what we were just talking about. Right. And I think we really have learned so many lessons from Over the Rhine. Number one, the only way you actually revitalize neighborhoods is by investing a lot of money. So let's face it, let's be honest. 3CDC's investment in taking over those buildings and then turning them over to developers who made housing and commercial spaces was key to it. And we saw that, and so when I was on council 2009 to 2013, we made some really key investments, big money, into some other neighborhoods we saw as up and coming. So Walnut Hills got $10 million from the city. And what they did with that money is did the same thing that 3CDC did. They purchased buildings and they started to revitalize them. And that is all happening now in Walnut Hills. And we did the same thing in College Hill and Madisonville. Those were the four neighborhoods I remember where we made key investments. So I think what we need to do differently this time is make sure that we preserve affordable housing as we go about this. So there's different ways to do that. Okay. But in a policy way that they did it, for example, in Portland, they said, if you want our money, any city subsidy for anything you want to build along the streetcar line, 30% of your units have to be affordable. They just made that their city policy. And that's how they kept affordable housing all along their streetcar route. So there's possibilities going on. I know this is being talked about right now, and Vice Mayor David Mann is working on this issue with a lot of the affordable housing advocates, but there's something called a housing trust fund that is another tool that some cities use, where developers voluntarily pay a portion into this trust fund, basically, for affordable housing. So that's another possibility. So I'm interested in learning about all the best practices across the country, and going with the one that's going to work best for Cincinnati.
So what would you say you have learned from the revitalization of Over the Rhine?
That it takes a lot of money and a very focused, committed effort, and it takes more time than you think it's going to take. And also that if you want to preserve and protect affordable housing, you need to have a policy in place to do that.
Right at front?
Yeah, I think you should. Because right now, as I said, it's very, very expensive to live there. We do still have some affordable housing in Over the Rhine, but a lot of it has been lost. And we just did a big rally last Friday for affordable housing. That's what this postcard is for, that I gave put in front of you all, because my friend, U.S. Senator Maria Cantwell, is a senator from state of Washington. We went to college together. We were roommates at Miami University. And she has legislation right now pending in the United States Senate that will increase the low-income housing tax credit by 50%. And that means if it passes, we could build 40,000 more affordable units across the country. It's huge, because that tool, that low-income housing tax credit, that's the only tool that really works out for private industry. If you want to motivate private industry to build affordable housing, they need this tax credit. So if you make more of the tax credits, we can have more affordable housing. So, that's one way I want to use my platform to champion good policy, even if it's not at the local level, it's at the national level. So I do want to give credit to a couple senators who have signed on to this. Portman, he's on this bill. Cory Booker from New Jersey is one of the senators who's signed on, and a bunch of female senators, both Republicans and Democrats, are behind this bill. So it's Senate Bill 548. Look it up. Tell your senator, your congresspeople to pass it, because it'll make a big difference for us.
We have a few more questions.
Okay.
I'm really glad you guys are asking.
Good. Yes.
One of our viewers says she is really glad that your child is a Cincinnati Public School student.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to know, how would you work with Cincinnati Public Schools to improve community and citywide engagement?
Well, when I was on council before, I did chair the committee that oversaw a bunch of areas, but education was one of them. And so one of the things that we did would be having joint meetings occasionally with our committee and the school board, just to see if there's something we can do together. I was a leader on council to be a supporter of the preschool promise. Mm-hmm. That really came up in 2013 when I was on council. So the reason that I became so passionate about it was John Pepper. So many of you know John Pepper, who used to be chairman of P&G. I saw him do a keynote speech where he devoted his entire keynote speech to the preschool promise and the importance of early childhood education. So I had him come into our council committee and do the same talk. Getting a little feedback there. But we got our council people excited about this too. And so, I think we can champion the good things that are happening at Cincinnati Public that a lot of people don't know. So, it is the top urban school system in the state of Ohio. They are doing creative things to try to move all kids up. And one of the most recent things, I don't know if you've heard about it, but they're going to start another school for gifted kids that maybe aren't quite as gifted as the kids who get into Walnut, but kids who still want to go to a special school. It's called the Spencer School. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be in Walnut Hills. So they're always trying new things to be innovative. And so I think as a council member, you can help champion the good things that are happening on Cincinnati Public. Be in touch with the community if there needs to be changes. And one thing that comes to mind too, when I was on council, some citizens really wanted to open up Hyde Park School. It was closed. And so we helped that effort too. We helped them get the attention of the school board members, and they've opened that Hyde Park school, and I know everyone loves it. So,
all right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Does the local government have a plan to promote diversity in our city and make local government accessible to non-English and ESL community members?
Well, I don't know what their current plan is at the city level right now, but I mean, we do say that we are open to immigrants, that we embrace immigrants, we want immigrants, but I think it would be good if we put our money where our mouth is and do signage in some key places around the city that is also in Spanish and other languages, maybe even German, since we want to celebrate our German history. But this issue came up when we had the World Choir Games, and we knew we were going to have visitors from all over the world to our city. And one reason people do feel welcome in a city is if they see things in their own language too. So I think that's something we should think about more. Now, with the change in technology, there might be a way of doing that with apps and things that don't necessarily mean a sign, but I think we have to be open to the ideas that people have, that what we need to do to make it more welcoming.
All right, thank you. Someone is asking, can the city adopt any of the principles of Habitat for Humanity in revitalizing our neighborhoods, building equity for lower income families?
What do they mean? I mean, I know that we've worked with Habitat on projects, and Habitat does such a great job partnering with so many private organizations. So I'm not sure what they're saying could we do.
Okay.
I'd be open to hearing your idea.
Right. If the person who asked that question would like to follow up with a comment elaborating, please do so, and I will return to it. And we have one more question that has come in from a member of United We Stand.
Okay.
We have been shocked to learn how much it costs to protest.
Huh. How much does it cost to protest? I'd probably be shocked too, and I don't know.
I'm pretty sure we're paid.
You mean for the permits and everything?
Well, let's see what she says. From her understanding, the Women's March costed thousands for a safe march. How can we make protesting more affordable? And this just in, she is saying, yes, permits, police, etc.
Yeah. Boy, I've heard that complaint quite a bit, not from protesters so much, but for people who have festivals, and like Bach Fest, those kind of smaller events in our city. They always complain about that because they make you get a certain number of policemen depending on how big your thing is going to be, and it's very expensive. I don't know what the answer is, because I'm sure that for safety reasons we do need to have a police presence, and there do have to be permits, but maybe we should consider reducing the cost of those. I don't know what the permit fee actually covers. I know what the police fee covers, the cost of the off-duty or on-duty officers, but I'm not sure what the permit fee is covering.
Something for the to-do list, it sounds
like. Something to look into, because I have heard that complaint quite a bit.
And we will have these questions archived if you ever want to return to them.
Okay, great.
Okay. I'm going to move on to, we touched a little bit on education. We have a general question about that, which is, how will you support education improvements, including early education and childcare expansion? And you mentioned preschool promise.
Right, that's huge for our city, and so I'm going to support that, because that is what people just voted on by an overwhelming margin, which was really encouraging. But it's going to be important to roll that out in the right way. And I'm not saying I'm going to be involved in that, but I want to be supportive of the people who've been working on this plan for like 3 or 4 years, and making sure that it rolls out well and that people have access to it. So I believe that the preschool promise is really a game changer for our city. I remember, back when we were in those childcare days, I mean, it's a shock when you're a new parent about how much it is to, have quality childcare and preschool too. It's almost like your second biggest bill after your housing comes childcare, and it's like shock because you don't think about it until you have the baby. So I think that if we can supplement that and subsidize it, we'll get so many more people choosing our city as a place to live just for that big benefit. So I think it's going to be great to see how that happens.
Okay, and still related to education, how will you ensure that public schools are providing comparable and competitive education regardless of the race or economic status of students?
Well, Cincinnati Public Schools is certainly has an equal opportunity platform, and I don't think that we would be involved in that necessarily, because that's really the school board's job, not our job. But if there were complaints of any kind, we could help facilitate, answers and finding solutions. But really, that's why you have a school board.
Right.
So I think that's something for them.
Okay. Our viewer who asked about Habitat for Humanity
has
come back with some more information.
Okay.
So Habitat allows their labor in a project to count as equity toward the home. If a potential homeowner were to assist in revitalizing a building to be used toward, they use that equity toward their purchase of property or apartment.
Oh, I see. That's an interesting idea, but I think it all depends on who owns the property. So in these properties that we're talking about, revitalizing, they're not city owned usually. It's usually owned by a private owner. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, maybe we could think about using that model to see if developers would be interested. But if we don't own the property, we can't impose that on somebody. But okay. It might be something to look at.
All right, thank you. Mm-hmm. I just want to briefly pause and remind everybody that we are here with Laure Quinlivan, Cincinnati City Council candidate, as part of our continuing series of Q&A events for Together We Will, Cincinnati Southwest Ohio, and we are joined by several area groups. If you are just tuning in, please know that you can ask questions by clicking on the video feed and commenting. And please do join in with questions.
Mm-hmm. It's great that this is, going two ways. I love that.
Yeah. And we have another question.
Okay.
Can you talk more about the green initiatives that you support, and if low and middle income families can directly benefit from any of these programs?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad someone asked that. So I think sustainability is absolutely key for our future. And the way that low income families can benefit is, number one, the second biggest bill you've got after housing, if you don't have kids, is utilities, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we can reduce utility costs by making green buildings, energy efficient, LEED certified buildings, we're really cutting costs for people so that they can live better lives. So one of my initiatives on council was the LEED tax abatement, mm-hmm. which basically says if you build green in our city to this standard, this LEED standard, which is international, you get a tax abatement for 15 years. And doing that has really helped us build not only homes but offices and office towers. Like Queen City Tower is a green building. Many people don't know these things. And GE, their new offices at the banks, all of it is LEED certified. But that's great because those buildings are healthier for the people that are using them. They're less expensive to run and operate, and for all of us, it just reduces our carbon footprint. So I'm a big proponent of the LEED tax abatement, and I hope that it continues for a long time.
Do you want to just remind us what LEED stands for?
Sure. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. Okay. And there's 4 standards of LEED. So if you do basic, it's just called LEED, and then there's LEED Silver, LEED Gold, and LEED Platinum. And you get a better tax break the higher you go up in our city. So it incentivizes you to do the most that you can. My house that we're in, LEED. So I didn't know anything about green building until I got on council the first time. And here I was in a house that was, pretty old, but in a really good neighborhood. And my husband and I had been thinking about renovating, and we looked into the cost, and it was so expensive, and so we didn't do it. And then I was seeing these green homes, like at our City-Rama and other places. And we decided that it actually made financial sense to just tear down our old house and build a green energy house, an energy efficient house. So we did that, and that allowed us to stay in our neighborhood that we love and improve the housing stock here. And I see that happening all over the city now, so it's very exciting, because otherwise people just go, oh well, I'm just going to move out to the suburbs. And we don't want that. We want people to stay in the city and improve the housing stock we have here.
All right, thank you. I'm glad you elaborated on that.
Yeah.
Sticking to the environment, what is the current condition of the Ohio River and Mill Creek?
Oh, good. I mean, it's not good. All right.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked, is what I meant by that. Okay, so, the Ohio River is a little better than it used to be, but we have a huge, huge problem here in Cincinnati in that every time there is a long, hard rain, our combined sewers overflow and raw sewage goes right into the Ohio River. And it's so bad that we are under a federal consent decree to fix it. And that is why your sewer bills are going up, in part because MSD is working on this fix that they have to do by federal decree so that we can, improve our water quality. But the exciting part is the Mill Creek area where all this work is going on, we're trying something innovative. We're doing a green solution. So there was two ways to go. We could either build a giant, giant pipe under the ground, or we could daylight, meaning open up the Mill Creek and do a green alternate solution to accomplish the same goal, that raw sewage doesn't flow into the Ohio. So we're doing the green solution, which I'm really glad about, but it is very expensive. Both of the options are very expensive, and it's going to take some time. But when it's done, that whole area along the Mill Creek is going to be a great place to live. It really will be. You'll be along a beautiful stream that is clean, and there's a lot of development opportunity there. So I think in the long run, it's going to be really great for our city. But we're working on it. It's expensive, and I do hope that the city and MSD can work better together in the future with new leadership at the county and the new leadership we'll have on city council, so that we don't have these fights between the two agencies, because that does not help citizens at all.
Thank you.
Sure.
We're going to switch gears a little bit. We have some more questions coming in.
Okay.
What is your plan to combat childhood poverty?
Well, that's a big issue, and once again, I want to give a little bit of deference to the people who have been leading this child poverty initiative for the last 2 years, led by somebody I very much respect, Lynn. Gosh, I'm forgetting her last name right now. Who is it, Liam? Lynn from Kroger, who's married to Jean Beaupre. Oh gosh, this is embarrassing. Lynn, I apologize, but I'll remember as we're talking and say. But anyway, she has led this poverty collaborative that has involved so many different stakeholders. And it's such a complicated problem. I bet everybody wishes, well, the solution is, but it's complicated. There's a number of things we can do. The preschool promise will help, getting our children of all income levels into quality education so that they can succeed is number one. And then better workforce development programs. So, because we need the parents to be earning a decent living too. So one of the workforce development programs I'm excited about, and I learned about it because I was hired to do their video recently, it's called Perscolas. And Perscolas is a workforce development program that takes people who don't have any IT skills at all, but if you're unemployed or underemployed and you want to try a career in IT, they give you this 8-week training course. You don't have to pay for it. That's subsidized by private partners. And at the end of the 8-week course, you are hired. and you go into a job with a salary that's at least in the 30s with full benefits. And they cannot train them fast enough because we have 2,000 open IT jobs in our region. So we really need people to get into IT, and we have all these people in poverty. So I think this is one training program that is proven successful that we should be scaling up. So that's just one little thing. But I want to wait to see what the solutions are proposed by this poverty collaborative that's been going on for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And they haven't really said, here's what we need to do and here's our first priority. And I know that they've been studying it for 2 years, so I want to see what they say.
Okay, thank you. Switching gears slightly again to transportation.
Okay, good. That's important.
Yeah. Could you comment on the megabus stop? It has been moved from 4th Street, which is easy access, to Central Parkway, to presently the edge of town, which personally does not feel safe to this particular viewer.
Oh, so I've taken the megabus when it was on 4th Street. So I don't know where it is now. And I know that they had to move it because of a lot of complaints that were there on 4th Street about the noise, and there were issues there at 4th Street, but I don't know where it ended up. So when she says the edge of town, do we know where that is?
I don't, but perhaps this person would be willing to comment further with some more details so that we can follow up on that. That would be great.
Yeah.
And then while we're waiting for that to come in, I'll just move on with a couple other questions. We are wondering, what programs or initiatives would you support to make Cincinnati more environmentally responsible? And in particular, can local energy be sourced from wind, solar, water instead of coal?
Absolutely, but we already, many people don't know this, we have 100% green energy in our city. So we get our energy green.
Great.
In Cincinnati. So we're ahead of a lot of people in that regard. And yes, I think we need to be doing much more in the area of wind and solar. I just saw a movie, which I highly recommend, called Catching the Sun. And it basically shows how far the United States is behind so many other countries when it comes to really using solar to its ultimate use. We do have a program at the city right now called Solarize Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. And for people who are interested in seeing if, solar panels make sense for them, the city does help subsidize it. So I would encourage you to call the Office of Environmental Quality and ask about the Solarize Cincinnati program too.
Oh, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we had touched briefly on transportation, so I actually want to skip ahead to our transportation questions. We in general want to know how would you help alleviate poverty in Cincinnati by improving the bus system and public transportation, and in particular, do you have any plans for underserved communities?
Well, I think the public transportation is for everyone, but in particular the underserved communities, because they rely on public transportation to get to jobs, and we have to do a much better job of connecting people to the jobs. So we all know that there are people who want to work at the airport, want to work at Sharonville and other places where the jobs are, and our bus system does not make it convenient at all for them to get there. It's really not a great system. We have to admit that. They are thinking about what is the best way to fund that. I'm sure you've seen and read that they're thinking about putting a tax levy on the ballot. They've got to work that out. But I would be supportive of improving our bus transportation because we have to. But I also think we have to look at all the other modes of transportation and improve those as well. And we've started our streetcar project in the hardest place it was to do it, our core, our city core. That's where it's the most expensive and difficult to do. And we've done it. And now we need to expand it. And we need to go first to that job center at the top of the hill, because there's also a lot of jobs up in the UC area that people can't get to easily. So expanding the streetcar there will help. But also, a lot of people don't think about this, but I think we need to expand our bike connections. So our city is small enough that you can actually get to a lot of places by bicycle if it's safe, but we don't make it safe. We don't have great paths and trails that connect, but there is a plan to do that. It's called Cincinnati Connects, and that's another reason I'm excited about being on council, because I'm going to make this a priority, and this would bring sort of a network, like a superhighway of bike paths and bike trails that connect to each other, that go through 32 neighborhoods. That would really help people get to jobs as well. So I think we have to think of it at all levels: the bus, bikes, rail, and then maybe there's some creative solutions with companies like Uber and Lyft that we have not really fully explored yet, about getting people who work third shift to certain jobs where we know that they're at. So I think all of that's on the table.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just to review for everybody, we are close to wrapping up our Q&A session. If you have a question for Laure, please submit it now so that we can make sure we get it in there before the session ends. I'm going to move on to health and safety.
Okay.
Okay. What is the city's responsibility related to public health? And what role would you propose that city government play in population health management and the resolution of health disparities?
Well, our city government is unique and really far ahead of some in many ways, because we have health clinics that are run by the city. A lot of people don't know that, and a lot of other cities don't have them. So we're already ahead of the curve, because this is where a lot of people go for primary care. And we want them going to our health clinics. We don't want them going to the emergency room, where it costs us all more money and it's not an efficient way to, you don't have a medical home. So I think supporting our health clinics that we have, and I have a track record of doing that when I was on council, when we were in a budget crunch before, I served during the recession. There were some on council that wanted to completely cut all of our health centers. There were people on council who wanted to completely cut school nurses. And I helped save that program, and it's become a great program now for Cincinnati Public Schools, where they have school nurses in a health center at the school that's kind of like the community home base. And our Cincinnati Public Schools are a national model for community-based healthcare. So I think that's really great and important, and we need to showcase that and protect our health clinics. One of the other things we did when I was on council is we found out that one of the number one unmet health needs in the city was dental care. People were going to the emergency room for dental care. So we passed some more money to fund 2,000 more visits at our health clinics for dental care for folks. So, I'm a supporter of that. The disparities, I think we, at the city, we fund a group called Center for Closing the Health Gap, which is their entire mission is to close the health disparities. And I know that they've been working on that for a few years, and the city does help fund that.
Great. And how would you address the heroin epidemic?
Well, I think, it's such a big and important issue, and I know that there is, once again, a lot of other people leading on that, a lot of collaborations. I would support those, but one thing I see as a citizen, as a mom, is there's not enough treatment beds. So if you have somebody who is ready to change their life, it's hard for them to find even a place where they can go into a 30-day program. So I think what we need to do is find ways to increase those treatment beds for the people who do want to get out of the lifestyle that they're in. Another thing that I would support is, looking at best practices across the country and trying them. So here's something Cincinnati Police are doing, and I just learned this by going to a community council meeting the other day. District 3 is piloting a program right now that Norwood is doing and Coleraine Police are doing that has been successful. So when someone overdoses and they survive, the very next day, this team shows up. The team includes police, fire, social workers, and they say to the person, we need to get you into treatment, and you've got to come now. Come now. We have a bed waiting for you. And so I think that is a great program, and if it works for other places, then maybe that is something that will work for us. And I'm glad that our Cincinnati police are piloting that in District 3.
Oh, that's really good news.
Yeah.
Thank you. Similarly, how do you propose city government decrease the spread of HIV and syphilis?
Well, I think our health clinics know what to do, and one idea solution that comes up is giving needles. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good idea. I know a lot of people oppose that idea, but it has worked in other places, and I think that is one solution that is proven to stop the spread of that.
Okay. We are close to wrapping up. I want to ask one more question, and then I'll give you a chance to summarize.
Okay.
Okay. And the question I'm going to ask is, what programs would you propose to reduce the number of incidents of gun violence in the city?
Programs. I think the issue is a root issue of, the pastors know this, that work with the community, that there needs to be another way to solve our problems. And there's a culture of the way you solve the problem is go get a gun and shoot somebody. And so I don't think the solution is necessarily more police. It's more intervention at this early stage of people's lives, these young teenagers, helping them choose a better path and learning some skills. Just like our police needed to learn how to de-escalate situations and not just shoot people, we need to teach those same skills to our youth that haven't learned them.
Okay. Thank you again. Thank you to Laure Quinlivan.
Thank you.
Thank you to Dawn from Cincinnati State.
Great job. I hope my husband's watching. He's taking sign language.
Do you want to take a couple minutes and just wrap?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for this opportunity. I really think it's remarkable that all of you are involved in this effort to bring, attention to public issues and candidates like myself. So we sure appreciate it, first of all. I did want to mention one thing about community entertainment districts because,
please.
Yeah, my legislation that I think people don't know what it is exactly, but this is changing the city. So we started in Pleasant Ridge, and this was a citizen idea where they said, why can't we become a community entertainment district like these developers can? Because at the time, you had to be a developer with a ton of money to create an entertainment district. So I worked with these citizens. We changed the law so that if you're a nonprofit development group like Pleasant Ridge Development Corporation, you can become a community entertainment district. It covers a certain area, certain buildings, and if you get approved, then any restaurant can move to one of those empty spaces you've got and not have to pay for the liquor license, which cost about $25,000 to $30,000. So if you're a restaurant owner, you immediately remove a huge obstacle to opening, and you get to open with a liquor license, so you're making money, you're making a good profit. And Pleasant Ridge took advantage of this, and now we have Imanu was able to buy its building instead of going out of business. We have Casa Figueroa that's opening, Overlook Lodge, and then other neighborhoods started doing it. So Walnut Hills has it now, and they've got Just Q and Barbecue and Video Archive, and a couple other places have opened there. Oh, Fireside Pizza. They're doing it on the west side. There's one in Westwood now. There's one in East Price Hill. It's spreading all over the city, and I'm so excited about that because that really is changing neighborhoods, making them more interesting, making them a place where you want to go hang out with your neighbors. There's actually like a local watering hole for you to do that, and it's a restaurant that serves food. Myrtle's Punch House in East Walnut Hills, Opayo, Mardi Gras on Madison. These are all community entertainment district restaurants. And so the reason I bring it up in my closing is because I think it's still a great economic development tool for some neighborhoods that haven't taken advantage of it yet. So Camp Washington, Roselawn, Avondale, Bond Hill, I can't wait to work with you so you can do it as well because it has helped so many other neighborhoods across our city.
Thank you so much for elaborating on that. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I know people don't know what it is, and so I'm glad I had the chance to explain it a little bit better.
Okay. Thank you guys for joining us. This will be recorded and a link will be posted. If you didn't catch the whole thing, you can catch up. Good night.